Alright, here we go. Take one old record, clean it with alcohol, and base paint it with a multi-surface acrylic paint. I like to use 2 coats of black Folkart satin acrylic. It creates a beautiful base for all my mandalas. I will be using a circle finder for our guidelines today, but you can easily just use a compass. We are going to be marking 36 pie shape guidelines. Here's a tip for making a template. I've got an old album cover that I marked out with the 360 degrees from the circle finder. This will be my template for quickly marking out multiple records for my 3D workshop this fall. Just place the record on top and center it on the middle dot. I'm going to show you some items you will need, and I will put a link to them below. First is a good protractor. I love this one as the locking arms are for opening and closing the legs and the wheel is for smaller adjustments. I use both water-soluble and chalk pencils in this video as I have combined different clips to create this tutorial. I really like the quality of the Staedtler sharpener. I've had this particular one for longer than I can remember. I'm using a cheaper set of dotting stylus, as they are basically all the same. This one did not have the sizes stamped, so I added labels with the millimeters clearly visible. And of course some cotton swabs for cleanups. I just restocked my precision Q-tips during Amazon Prime days. I'm using DecoArt Americana titanium white, bright orange, and bright yellow for this fall palette. This combination always reminds me of Halloween candy corn. Now centering the record on my template, I am ready to transfer the 36 guidelines, also sometimes called spokes, using my water-soluble pencil. The ruler I'm using is from the dollar store. I have drilled holes in it to help me quickly mark out circle guidelines on larger mandalas. Look for my video on this in my training and tips playlist. I have 36 sections marked out, but only need 16 in the center to dot the sacred geometry design. So every second guideline only goes to the label. For proper ruler, compass, and protractor use, go and watch the complete beginner's guide to mandalas and sacred geometry art video on Zak Korvin's channel. He has taught me a ton and I know you'll learn a lot too. Follow around the record and remember, every second one, just mark to the label. I have also marked out on my ruler the measurements for the circle guidelines for this design. Starting with 0 at the label, mark out 0.5, 1.0, 1.5, 2.25, and 3.0 inches. The edge of the record should be approximately 4 inches from the label. Placing the record on a soft surface like a record album, center your compass and adjust it to the first mark. This will be the first circle guideline. Continue the same for the rest of the marks. When using a compass, pressure should only be on the side with the needle, and allow the pencil to gently glide over the record to create light guidelines. Now that all the spoke and circle guidelines are marked out, it's time to create the 3D guidelines. Place the compass needle on the first circle guideline where it intersects with the spoke guidelines. Before you start, make sure the tip of your pencil is not dull. A sharp pencil will create the clearest guidelines to follow. Set your compass to the distance from that guideline to the label. Double-check that is the same distance to the second circle guideline. Adjust if necessary. This will be your first semicircle guide. Remember, the pressure is always on the needle of the compass, allowing the pencil to gently slide over the surface. For these marks, I find it easier to rotate the record while keeping the compass fairly still. Repeat this process all around the record, creating the first half of your first 3D row. Remember, pressure only on the needle. Don't worry if it makes a mark on your record, you will be placing your first dot there. I steady the end with the needle to make sure it is right where the two guidelines meet. Once you've gone all the way around the record, it is time to do the second row of your 3D design. Follow the same instructions as the first row, but your semicircle will be in the other direction. Make sure it is the same distance from the third circle guideline to the fourth circle as it is to the second circle, which is the end of your first row. Adjust if necessary. Now, while keeping pressure on the needle, slowly rotate the record, allowing the pencil to glide over the record, marking your first semicircle. Repeat this process all around to create your second 3D row. Each row will get slightly bigger as you get nearer the edge of the record. Remember, the pressure is only on the needle side of your compass. See how this creates an S? This will give that 3D illusion. Follow the previous instructions for the third and final row, making sure this row is in the opposite direction of the previous. See how each semicircle starts at the end of the last rows. For a stress-free first row, I'd always mark out a circle where I know the exact size. I use the 7mm hole in this circle template, and this will be a guide for the first row of my sacred geometry center. Okay, well, let's move on. Here we will start the first half of the first row. Using the DecoArt Americana titanium white and the 1.0mm stylus, we will start at the middle of the semicircle and walk the dots into the label, following the guideline. Ensure you have a good amount of paint on your stylus and there are no clumps. Starting on the first circle guideline, walk the dots inward following the arc. Each dot will get smaller and smaller as less and less paint will be released from the stylus. As we are doing 3 different colors, skip the next 2 semicircles and walk the dots in on the third line. Continue this around the whole record. Now, using the bright orange color and the same tool, repeat this process on every second semicircle guideline. If you find your paint has sat too long, or you find it has a clump or two, I would suggest giving it a good mix. I bought this inexpensive tattoo ink mixer on Amazon and it has changed my life. It's perfect for small pots or the shallow palettes, it mixes smoothly with no mess and no bubbles. It also comes with 100 detachable tips. I'm still on my first one as I just cleaned them in my tool cleaner water. Perfect consistency and I'm ready to dot again. You can clean up any drips as you go along, but chances are you will most likely be placing a dot over them on your next row. Continue for the rest of the row. Now, using the bright yellow color and the same tool, repeat this process on every third semicircle guideline. Repeat this process for the second half of the first row using the 1.5 mm stylus and all three colors. Always walking the dots along the semicircle guidelines. This time walking outwards from the label toward the start of the second row. Continue for the white and the orange. If you find that two dots have spread into each other, you can simply use your precision Q-tip to remove one dot, then redot, leaving more space in between. Then continue to walk the dots. The second row is complete with the 2.0mm stylus tool. Oops! If you have a dot that is too big because there was a clump in the paint, remove the dot, mix the paint again, then continue to walk the dots. The precision Q-tips are great for fixing little mistakes like this. But just make sure that you dry off the section that you just fixed before you dot over it. All good to go again. Complete the rest of the second row. Use the 2.5mm stylus for the third row. Same process as the previous rows for all three colors. At this point, you need to be very aware of where you put your fingers when rotating the record. Make sure you don't grab where you just dotted. You can always put your record on a Lazy Susan or a piece of paper that you can rotate and not touch the record. Once the piece is finished and it has sat for 24 hours or more to completely dry, you can remove the guideline with a damp microfiber cloth. If you want to take this piece from beginner to intermediate, you can add additional semicircles in between to enhance the 3D effect. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more dot mandalas, memorial stones, and upcycled art, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at noblarts_ron, and if you're ever in the Kootenays, come paint with me at a local workshop.